The day after a drone exploded in a cornfield in the village of Osini in Poland's Lublin region, the Minister of Defence answered questions at a press conference related to the violation of Polish airspace. This drone was not launched accidentally. It was launched deliberately to attack Ukraine, and as a result of various measures, it ended up in Poland. The entire operation was launched by the Russian Federation. These conclusions were first reached by local citizens, who were able to watch the recorded moment of the explosion and compare the remains of the drone with the Iranian-designed Shahed drones used by Russia. This incident has certainly not helped the state authorities' PR. The Polish state was slow to react. The situation involving the explosion of this drone took place around midnight. The authorities began their activities after 3 a.m. when the police finally arrived. In fact, for a whole 36 hours, the Minister of Defence and the Polish state under Donald Tusk gave us a spectacle of incompetence. First, the military stated that it had not detected a violation of Polish airspace and that an old engine had exploded in Osini. Later, at a conference in Minsk Mazowiecki, the head of the Ministry of Defence wondered whether a smuggling drone had exploded in a Polish field. At this press conference, the enemy was informed that radar protection of our territory had been increased and that certain military units had been placed on high alert. They were given everything on a silver platter. At today's press conference, the Defence Minister answered questions about whether he had revealed too many secrets. Operational Command also makes decisions where you expect information, you ask about even the smallest details, and we always provide what we can. Polish society expects professionalism, competence and clear communication from the Minister of Defence, not propaganda beating around the bush and annoying professionals with the level presented by Poland's Minister of Defence. Yesterday evening, Minister Kozyniak-Kamysz stated that the drone was a Russian provocation sent to test Poland's defence systems. It collected key information about our system. There is no reconnaissance system, but more importantly, there is no effective action by the services that are designed to quickly recognise and transmit key information to the government. As a result, Kozyniak-Kamysz misled the public at least several times by downplaying the issues and later trivialising the message. Opposition MPs entered the Ministry of Defence today with a parliamentary inspection. Many Poles are asking questions about security and the activation of appropriate mechanisms. We also want to ask the Ministry of Defence whether our NATO allies have been notified or whether this extremely dangerous incident has also been ignored by the Ministry of Defence and the Polish government. Because, with the whole incident surrounding the drone, which appears to have flown in from Belarus, there are more questions than answers. Starting with the Sky Control anti-drone system purchased during the previous government to protect Poland's eastern border. There is still a war going on beyond our eastern border. Poles are at risk of being exposed to this kind of situation, and we do not know whether the air defence system was used properly or whether the radars were even at the border. We do not have comprehensive information about what will happen next with the military unit in Sobieszyn, which was supposed to have an air defence system. Citizens should be informed about whether we are in danger. We should also receive a comprehensive answer as to why Poland's air defence system failed. And what does Prime Minister Tusk have to say about this? We don't know. We do know that he is on vacation and is not concerned with matters such as the penetration of a Russian drone into Poland. At least not for now. Instead, he has time to insult the people of Hungary. Budapest? Perhaps not everyone remembers, but as early as 1994, Ukraine received assurances of territorial integrity from the United States, Russia and the United Kingdom. In Budapest? Maybe I'm superstitious, but this time I would try to find another place. This is not the first time the current Prime Minister has taken a vacation during a nationwide crisis. Interestingly, his current allies also spoke about this when they were not in his party. I wonder whether Prime Minister Donald Tusk will come to the vote at 9 a.m. Rumour has it that he won't. I wouldn't be surprised because that's what he did for 7 years. Whenever there was an important scandal, he was never there, either hiding or sending out a press spokesman. The problem is that despite having organised 3 press conferences, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defence has not properly reassured the Polish people, and certainly not the residents of Osini.
tym momencie to się nie czujemy bezpieczni. Polska jest za mało strzeżona. Po prostu przed tym wszystkim, przecież 2 lata temu było, 3 lata temu to było. No powinniśmy bardziej być bezpieczni. Ani premiera nie ma tutaj, nie ma nikogo.
Uważam, że taka sytuacja nie powinna zaistnieć w Polsce. Żyjemy w tak rozwiniętym kraju i technika już jest taka głęboka i jednak dalej sobie nie dają z tym rady.
Powinien być jakiś system, powinno być to lepiej wykrywane, że nawet jak on leci pod radarem i z małą prędkością, której nie wykrywa radar, no to powinno być to w jakiś sposób wykrywane.
Unless Poland's government starts taking air defence seriously, more such incidents may occur in the future. Shots fired from heavy weapons and police action in the hall in Modlinska 6D in Warsaw, Poland. This is another dramatic chapter in the conflict between merchants and Chechen security guards that has been going on for months. Merchants call it hell, and the scenes unfolding before their eyes look like scenes from an action movie. Merchants from Modlinska Street are still not allowed to access their workplaces, despite a valid court ruling from early May. Their stalls have been dismantled and the facility itself remains under the control of groups described by the merchants as Chechen gangs. According to one of the merchants, the hall is occupied by Chechens despite a valid court ruling and the lack of any legal title. Even the owners and persons with the right to use the facility are not being allowed inside.
Mamy postanowienie sądu, a oni nie mają żadnego tytułu prawnego.
We have a court ruling and they have no legal title. Bogusz and the association have no legal title. They are now occupying the hall themselves, just like that. We were here recently with the owner and they wouldn't even let the owner in because at the moment it is the owner of the building and us who are the legal owners of this place, and we have legal title, and yet they won't let us in. Witnesses described the scenes as like something out of an action movie. Shots were fired. State services, including the police and anti-terrorist units, arrived at the scene. All you could hear were some noises because the car that wanted to leave turned back and quickly drove back through the gate to its place, and the police, of course, were following them. Anti-terrorist units with binoculars, weapons and sniper rifles were also on the roof. For a moment there were 2, and I just know that that's how it was. TV Republica was the only television station on the scene. They tried to push us out by force.
Widzieliśmy, że wjeżdżali tutaj Czeczeni, tak?
To bardzo ciężkie przestępstwo. Po pierwsze, tłumienie.
This is a very serious crime. First, the suppression of press criticism by force, and second, assault and violation of personal inviolability. In fact, both the reporter and the camera operator were attacked. It seems that the thuggish methods used against the merchants there are also used against journalists.
Tam są stosowane wobec kupców, teraz zaczynają być stosowane wobec dziennikarzy.
This is another demonstration of the lawlessness that is taking place there. The direct attack on a woman by people from this security company is something that should also be investigated, and criminal proceedings should be initiated in this case. These people should be charged because, unfortunately, this is not the first case of this type. There was further tension on Modlinska Street. Witnesses report the police used force to enter the building in search of people hiding there. They broke in, so they were probably looking for someone. Someone must have been hiding there. They had some reason for using force to enter. The police confirm that operations in Białęka have begun and are continuing, but they are not disclosing any details of the operation. I can confirm that we have been conducting operations in the Białęka district of Warsaw. These operations began the day before yesterday and are continuing. The operations will continue until they are completed. For their sake, I cannot reveal any details of the case. One of the Chechen women tried to drive into the hall. She stopped in front of the gate. She was visibly upset. She looked around nervously and gestured towards the security guards. The camera captured the moment when she tried to explain something but was not allowed in. After a moment, she reversed her car and drove away. The fire department lent a ladder so that the police officer could perform his duties at height. Our actions consisted solely of lending equipment and helping the police officer reach a height of about 4 meters. We do not know the details of the incident itself. In this matter, you should contact the police directly. Witnesses found 3 open sewer manholes along the railway tracks not far from the site of the police raid. In their opinion, this is where some of the pursued Chechens may have escaped from the officers. The evidence and the exact location were handed over to the police. Meanwhile, determined merchants are already looking for their own tunnels, because to win against the Chechens, you sometimes have to find a loophole.
A penal colony, maximum security prison, and electric shock torture. This is how Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko and his regime treat political prisoners. One of them was Belarusian oppositionist Juraś Jankovic. After 4 years, thanks to the efforts of Donald Trump's administration, he was able to leave his prison in Belarus. 11 years in a maximum security prison. This was the sentence handed down to Juraś Jankovic in 2021. A Belarusian with an American passport, he is a lawyer and opposition activist. For Lukashenko, personal power is the ultimate goal. He will kill people. He will do anything to stay in power. Jankovic was arrested in Moscow. He was accused of planning a military coup. He spent the first 2 months in a penal colony. The concept of a penal colony may not be as literal as with the old punishment of exile to Siberia, where there were barbed wire fences and guard towers. It is a form of prison with a stricter regime. He was sent from the penal colony to a prison. Maximum security prisons in Belarus can change a person. Both of these photos show Juraś Jankovic. They were taken only 2 years apart. The hardest part was the complete isolation. For 4 years, I had no contact with my family. During the last year, no lawyer was allowed to visit me because that is a means of communication. I received the first and last letter from my wife in August 2021, and I was never allowed to call my family or my wife. That was a blow to the psyche. As for physical blows, Jankovic was subjected to electric shock torture. I suspect that the deputy prison director was trying to explain to me that I was behaving badly, that he was the authority there, that I should shut up and follow all his orders. What keeps a person going in such conditions? I had 3 tools. First, I learned Spanish. Second, when I was in solitary confinement, I kept my mind on math. And third, something very important, Christianity, the Bible. Jankovic spent 4 years in a Belarusian prison. He was released in April thanks to the intervention of Donald Trump's administration, whose policy towards Belarus is actively supported by Juraś Jankovic. Thanks to the president's leadership, Belarus has released another wrongfully detained U.S. citizen. No president has done so much so quickly to keep Americans safe abroad. In just 100 days, we've also secured the release of 47 unjustly detained Americans around the world, including in Afghanistan, Russia, and Venezuela, through high-level diplomatic efforts. After talks with Lukashenko, the U.S. president announced negotiations on the release of all political prisoners of the Belarusian regime. We are keeping our fingers crossed that these 1,300 people will be released in the near future, including Andrzej, and that we will be able to meet him soon. He is referring to Andrzej Puch, a journalist, friend of Juraś Jankovic, and, like him, a political prisoner. They were held in the same prison. From what I know, because the prison administration did not provide much information about it, he's being held in a prison in Mogilev. Andrzej Puch has been in a Belarusian prison since March 2021. He was sentenced to 8 years. First and foremost, he is a prisoner because he is Polish. This is a blow to Poland, which has been going on for several years now. It is very sad that the Polish government is doing nothing to get Poczobut out of prison. For Lukashenko, political prisoners are a tool for instilling fear in Belarusian society. Lukashenko is not a rational person. He is concerned with maintaining power, so he will fight for that power, regardless of who it is, whether it is Putin, Trump, or anyone else. He will fight to the last Belarusian. He will kill people. This is even more so after the events of 2020, when he rigged the presidential election. Belarusians tried to say enough is enough and took to the streets, but the dictator managed to remain in power. Belarusians have renounced their obedience to lies and terror. Society has had enough, to put it bluntly. Lukashenko could not afford any breach in the system he has built over the years, and that is why the society that said no was immediately pacified. That is why Trump's mission to free all political prisoners may prove extremely difficult. Lukashenko, who is heavily dependent on Moscow, is fighting for his physical existence, and I am not sure if he would be able to decide on such a move so quickly. There are still about 1,300 political prisoners in Belarus. This is the best confirmation of what press agencies have been unofficially reporting since Wednesday afternoon. Gaza is under Israeli siege. Israeli armed forces are already operating in the suburbs of the city. Today, Tel Aviv officially confirmed the start of the next phase of the operation against Hamas. We will increase the damage inflicted on Hamas in the city of Gaza, the bastion of this terrorist organization's government and military terror. We will increase the damage to the terrorist infrastructure above and below ground and break the population's dependence on Hamas. We are not waiting. We have begun preliminary operations and the first stages of the attack on the city of Gaza. For the city, it is a disaster. The humanitarian situation was already dire. The siege of Gaza will lead to even greater suffering for civilians. On the other hand, according to the Israeli army, Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields, building bases for militants in refugee camps and hospitals. Hence, the decision was made to invade the city.
Israel has to make this decision and has to live with whatever decision they make. But President Trump is fully supportive of making sure that Hamas knows that from the U.S. perspective, they have to disarm. They have to give up and let all the hostages go. Whether it takes 60 days or 60 minutes, that's the ultimate end result.
The agreement worked out by mediators, to which Hamas was supposed to agree, provided for the release of half of the hostages held in Gaza, whom the Palestinians abducted from a kibbutz less than 2 years ago. Some of the families of the kidnapped are in favor of signing the agreement, hoping that their loved ones will be released first.
There's a deal on the table. This is the opening we need for a comprehensive deal. We must sign it immediately. We welcome every hostage who returns and every family reunites with their loved ones. Time is running out. The hostages cannot survive much longer in the hand of these brutal captors. We cannot support more fighting.
But Tel Aviv is demanding the immediate release of all hostages and the surrender by Hamas of its weapons. It rejects all negotiation proposals that mediators have worked out so far. The thought is, we do not negotiate with terrorists. For Hamas, on the other hand, the hostages kidnapped almost 2 years ago in an attack on an Israeli kibbutz near the Gaza Strip border are its only insurance policy. Those who today call for an end to the war without defeating Hamas not only strengthen Hamas's position and delay the release of our hostages, but also ensure that the horror of October 7th will be repeated over and over again, and our sons and daughters will have to fight in an endless war. According to the Israeli government's plans, the entire Gaza Strip is to be placed under Israeli control, which, according to Tel Aviv, will allow for the disarmament and elimination of Hamas. Given the ferocity with which the militants are fighting and the determination of the terrorists, it is difficult to assume that this operation will end quickly.